Hey guys, it's Andrea. Welcome back to the channel. So guys, this is going to be a bit of a different one and a bit of a controversial one, I know. So this goes into disability terminology, disability wording, disability language. And this is going to be entirely from my own point of view. And it's why I don't like the term neurodiverse. And neurodiverse started out online to include those without a diagnosis who have brains who are wired differently, who work differently, who perceive the world differently. And we are starting to use it more and more and more and more. And it started out as a political movement and a Reddit thread to explain to people what ADHD is, what the autism spectrum disorder is, what brain injuries what intellectual disabilities are all forms of neurodiversity. And it's also come to include learning disabilities like dyslexia, dyscalculia, reading disabilities like, again, dyslexia, eye tracking issues, but it minimizes the struggle of people who suffer those conditions by putting us all under the same umbrella. A person with ADHD and a person with autism might struggle with very, very different things. A person with ADHD might have sensory difficulties, but in a different way to someone with autism. A person with ADHD is aware of the social cues, but might not be able to stop themselves as well. We're starting to see more and more research that ADHD affects bodies as well. And ADHD goes hand in hand with trauma. And we're starting to see late diagnosis in adults or that diagnosis being re-diagnosed into trauma reactions. I encourage you guys to check out Dr. Glauber's book, The Body Keeps Store. I'll put a link in it to my Amazon storefront below. Okay, guys? We see that it's hard for non-disabled people to understand. If you say to someone up front that you have ADHD, you have epilepsy, you have autism, they are generally going to give you the accommodations that you need. So for someone with inattentive ADHD, it might be extra time to finish a task. It might be a variety of tasks that are quick to do to keep you moving. It's also, if you say you're autistic, they might be able to help you, especially if you're in a customer-facing role, to move you to a non-customer-facing role or to do social scripting, to have a very routine-orientated shift. We also see that it has unfortunately been hijacked by bad faith political actors. This is what I really wanted to get into, because disability advocacy is not easy, guys. I was explaining to someone online that we don't have the same access to our rights as other minorities do. We still face exclusion and persecution. We have those rights on paper, but we don't have them in day-to-day realities. And our struggles are minimised by the media. We see care programs are labelled as wastage. We see doctors mischaracterising what is actually class privilege as disability privilege. We also see varying levels of access to the NDIS depending on the money you have for specialists. We also see an increase in people who are trying to make money out of the NDIS who might not have the training, education, or skills to be able to properly support people with a disability or support people who understand disability. This has led to further harm. And if people don't understand your way of thinking, you can't explain it to them. That can also create a lot of conflict. And that conflict could be in intimate relationships, could be in workplaces, it could be in educational settings, it could also be increasingly online. But we're also seeing that online people are generally a very small and vocal minority. I would encourage you guys not to feed the trolls. That standing up for yourself and using the phrases that I said about disability and behaviour. So just to recap those phrases are, this is not up for debate. This is my point of view. Do you have any evidence to suggest otherwise? And would you like to explain what you mean by that statement? And particularly when it's someone saying something very ignorant about people with a disability, I find that people really squirm with that one. So, guys, it is interesting to see them backtrack. I've found there's generally 2 or 3 responses that I get, being, oh, but I wasn't talking about you. Oh, it was just a joke. Or an absolute realization that that person is being a jerk or minimizing your struggle. And we all relate and empathize with people in different ways. For me, it's about telling stories. So I make YouTube videos. And I'm not the typical age group for making YouTube videos. I know that, but I know that there are people who've started later than me who've literally gone from being functionally homeless to owning their own home as well. And so, guys, this is something that's a little bit off track from this video. But I do encourage you guys to watch the smaller disabled creators. They're just trying to make a living and compete in society like everyone else. When you understand that life isn't a competition, we need to stop making it a competition, things do get a lot easier. When you realize that happiness is a choice, things become a lot easier as well. I've found by saying this is not up for debate because these are the facts, linked into when you're asking someone to explain their point of view, if they don't have the research and you do, if they're willing to learn, they will learn that research, they will learn that an understanding and take that on board. That's something that we need to carry forward in educating people about disabilities, because we don't have access to the same spaces that other people do have. We have disability only spaces, but that's not the same as equal access to other spaces. And the spaces that you need to access every day. Like, I applaud the supermarkets for having sensory hours, so quiet hours where the radio is turned off, lights are turned to a minimum, and announcements are kept to a minimum. I shop at Aldi. There's no radio, lights are kept to a minimum, and everything's in a really good layout. Makes sense. So why do the supermarkets have to have the bright lights, the music, the promotions, all of that, things that even someone without a disability could get very sensory overloaded with? And so we need to start going back to the basics as well. We forget about people living standards as well, living on disability allowances the terms for that will vary country by country. In my country, it's something called the Disability Support Pension, and it has indexed a couple. By Monday, it will index to about just under $2,000 with all the various energy, water, medication supplements with it. But that, with the price of groceries, rent, utilities, is actually not a lot, guys, and we need to be very aware of that. And we need to be aware that some people can't turn off the lights, that they need heating for medical reasons and things like that. And so this is another conversation I encourage you to have. If you have a person with a disability in your neighbourhood that does want to be included in events, if you're having a potluck, ask them to bring the napkins. Don't be afraid to send them home with the leftovers. Get them linked into food waste programs. And if they ask you to be a referee for a job, if they can do the job, if you know them personally, I would encourage you guys to go for it. And guys, I will see you guys in the next video. And guys, this video was not clickbait. Did you see how my thinking changed? This is what I'm talking about with neurodiversity. So I was planning to make a video on neurodiversity, but I made a video on disability and general thinking about disability. So I'm going to do a couple of these point of view videos, and if they do well, drop them in the comments below as well. Guys, thank you so much for 40 watch hours. I'm hoping by the end of Friday to have that up to 41 to 42, and I'll see you guys in the next video.